Welcome to Boschendal Wine Estate, a part of the Cape that is always in fashion, and that's rather appropriate as we welcome you to Boschendal the Nicholas Red Blazer series as we look at entrepreneurs from across South Africa who've got wonderful stories to tell of all the good times and some of the tougher times and give us much to learn from. And they tell that tale with not just myself, but Maponyane, my co-host. And our guest this week is someone who's been in fashion for probably just as long as Boschendal. He is a byword for luxury in South Africa. David Tlale, not just in South Africa, but indeed right around the world, has found fans, found acclaim for his particular brand of fashion and his particular feel for style. So how does entrepreneurship work in the broader world of fashion? Well, we'll find out with David and with Maps and with a couple of glasses of the Nicholas. So here we are for this week's episode, sitting in the historic confines of the Rand Club. And I'm rather heavily made up. You might not notice it, but I needed to be because I did not sleep at all last night. The nerves at trying to work out what does one wear when one is interviewing the great David Tlale. And as usual, Maps has just pulled out a t-shirt and looks like $1 million. I've had to work a little bit harder. But it's a real honour for us, Maps, because he's a man who's defining South African fashion.
Absolutely. Getting to interview someone like David Tlale is not an opportunity you get all the time. He is someone who has been a mainstay in the South African fashion industry and has made waves worldwide and has managed to put South African fashion on the map time and time again. And it's a real great honor to have you on the Red Blazer series.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored.
Now, we get to talk to you today, David, as this icon of South African fashion. It wasn't always the case. There must have been a young David with hopes and dreams of fashion, but somebody nobody really knew a few years back. Tell us about that journey from wanting to perhaps get involved in this space to how it actually happened.
I mean, the journey started out when I was studying auditing.
Sorry, studying auditing?
Auditing,
You were an auditor?
Imagine me today being an auditor. It'd be like really fantastic. So, and then I realized that this is not my calling, and I started hanging out with creatives at university, and then ultimately dropped out from auditing, went to study fashion, lectured fashion for 4.5 years. But before that, I didn't even know that one day I'll be just doing what I'm doing, but I've always been drawn towards the creative sides in terms of, like, I used to be a shampooist at a hair salon. I learned how to arrange flowers. I learned how to bake. And my uncle was a landscape painter. So I used to just like sit around with him, see how he mixes paint and color. And that used to really fascinate me. And I look at this now later in my years, and I see the influence, the direct impact that my uncle actually had in my journey.
What made you settle on actually starting a fashion business and becoming a designer and making that your full-time job?
The love for fashion and also just the whole value chain in the clothing and textile industry really pushed me to establishing the brand David Tlale, and also just changing people's lives and touching people's lives, because I believe my calling has superseded what I do for a living, because we have a program called The Intern by David Tlale, where 5 brands are already not even emerging. They are already running, they're employing people. But through the brand David Tlale, we've had over 68 interns that have gone through. And some of these brands have gotten and enjoyed some international exposure as well, which I think it's, for me, it's my pride and joy to say this is why I do what I do.
Maps and I get frequent phone calls from our respective mothers asking us when we're going to get a real job eventually. We love what we do, and we're very privileged to be able to do so. But there are a lot of people who will be sitting in the space you once were. You were an auditor, you had to make this leap of faith.
Yeah.
How difficult was it to step away from what we possibly see as a slightly more conventional job and to take this leap?
I think for me it was a natural progression, but the biggest challenge was from my mom, because she never saw me becoming a fashion designer. Immediately I went to the fashion classes. I knew this is my future, this is where I'm at. And but having to teach her through the journey to say, this is where we're going, this is what you're doing, was much major than for me. I was set. For me, it was no brainer. I was sitting in that auditing class and I was like, this is a decision I'm making today and it's over. This is my last day. And from that day, I never went back. and I will never go back, actually.
I mean, from auditing and then going into what you are now, and I think of Dan when he was a radio DJ or a DJ, actually.
A very bad DJ.
Getting through all this now, that also came with a great deal of mentorship and tutelage, and that's something that you're really, really proud of doing within the David Tlale group, essentially, and the intern program that you ran. What was the big opportunity or leap that you managed to get from a platform or from a designer or from someone that mentored you to get to where you got to?
I think, sure, being mentored is something else. I mean, I know that when I started my business in 2003, I interned with Julian from The Boys. I don't know if you remember them. For a good 2 months, I learned quite a lot from them. And then I had a little stint in New York at Carolina Carrera. And but most of the things that I
just with Caroline,
just like and also for me it was just like literally having to learn most of the information and experience, just gather it myself, and also to say, you know, in South Africa we don't really have many mentorship programs, especially when it comes to fashion. So I thought, with the bit of experience that I have, let me establish the Intern by David Tlale, because then we share the business of fashion. And now today, things have changed. We've got many mentorship programs that are running in the continent and globally for designers, which I think is really fantastic.
We're seeing a lot of designers come through right now. We're seeing the likes of Tebe Makubu,
Absolutely.
Rich Mnisi,
Musa Maxwell.
So they all are making great strides throughout the international platforms and in all those fashion weeks. But if we're honest, you were probably the first to have had a show at New York Fashion Week, and you set that standard and you kind of paved that way. What do you think of what's come after you, or what's been coming along with you? And you know, where does the standard of fashion lie now?
I think, you know, I would say being one of the guinea pigs along the journey has been like really phenomenal, because we started even assisting the young designers emerging from like whatever township it is, to say one day I want to showcase at New York Fashion Week or Paris Fashion Week. And we've seen like a huge turnaround within the country. Representation, like you said, from Tebe Makuku, Rich and Sindiso. And it's really beautiful, because it gives this industry hope to say the fashion industry in South Africa is taking the global stage, and also we can keep on inspiring generations to come, because I know that fashion in our country or in the continent, it's still like at infancy stage. So we need to get to that point whereby we become part of some group or conglomerate where investment comes in and we are able to have stores everywhere in the world. And I'm not going to talk about brands here, but we know that there's brands like the Hef stores in America, in Europe, everywhere, also in Africa. So we need to get to that part, because I think the time is right, and also the appetite for the world for South African or African designers is actually growing.
A big part of becoming an entrepreneur, starting your own business, is finding something that's new and different, but at the same time is something people still want and want to engage with. And I think fashion fits that space quite well, because you're creating something that's new and cool, but you've still got to want people to wear it and put it on and go out in it. How difficult was it to marry your creative instinct with the commercial necessity and find a space that worked in both of those areas?
I know this for sure. When we started the brand, I mean, we used to do all frills, feathers and everything, and people like, we can't wear David, that's just too much. For us, it was just like really a positioning exercise. And later in the years, and I remember when I started working at House of Monatic, I started understanding tailoring, I started understanding production planning and everything else, and also the back end of the business of fashion. After that, the time, which was like really fantastic, the time at Monatic, I then started applying, taking off the frills, the feathers, to make sure that someone can actually start wearing this product. And now 18 years full-time in the industry or in business, I'm saying when we create collections, it's no longer about just a PR stunt. It's about how many of these can we sell? and what's the durability of this fabric? How is the finishing of the sleeve, the lapels, the buttons, the hemlines? So now it's all about the business. It's no longer about just even trying to position, but we have to always keep reinventing ourselves in terms of craftsmanship, fabrications that we develop, and making sure that we actually grow as a business, as a lifestyle business, not more than just a clothing brand.
I'd like to see you in more frills and feathers.
Well, Dave and I are working on that. So it will look amazing. You wouldn't understand because it's fashion.
Speaking of fashion, it's not merely clothing and aesthetics that come in and out of fashion. Wine does as well. Sometimes it's big and strong and bold. Other times it's a little more rarefied, a little leaner. So what about the Nicholas makes it a wine that for Boschendal is timeless? Well, let's head down to the estate where Jacques Villion, our winemaker, is. Jacques, we've got a red blend here that seems like it's got many, many years ahead of it. What's going to keep it in style, keep it in fashion, and tell us a little bit about the particular style of the wine?
Once again, just to get to the philosophy of Boschendal. So I know that we in South Africa, we're in the New World, and in the early 2000s, wines were big and bold and quite extracted, and we are not going for that style at all. So everything that we do, all the terroirs that we're selecting for Nicholas is from the coolest areas in the Cape Coastal region. If you had to take something like Elgin, that's really nice and cold, ripe, elegant tannins. So everything is about elegance, it's about classic, it's balanced, seamless, and that is what makes a wine timeless. By selecting the grapes for the Nicholas from these cold areas, it helps with natural analysis. Natural analysis, very low pHs, nice natural acidities actually helps this wine. There's no additives. It just helps this wines to age tremendously well. I know that we're not talking about aging of the wines, but we're talking about something that's seamless and that's diamonds are forever. So that is our whole philosophy at the end of the day, just to stick to that classic and elegant.
So there we go, the timeless wine that is the Nicholas. Thank you, Jacques. I think it's more than time to have a glass thereof. And raise a toast to you, David, not just for coming on the show with us, for which we are most grateful, but also for the inspiration that you've given through so many people and to the space you find yourself in today. So cheers to you. And
cheers, gentlemen.
You.
Cheers.
Mr. Maponyane.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers.
Yes.
One of the things I love about wine, David, I collect a lot of it. I have a wine show. I speak about wine to anybody who will listen, which is often most reluctantly. And I love the fact that wine tells such a story and that we could be drinking this same bottle in 10 years' time and that story will have changed just as our will. What about the fashion story and making something that is timeless, something that can in 10, 15, 20 years' time still have a relevant story to tell?
Our journey as the brand David Tlale is being about that, just like telling a beautiful story over the years. I know that some of my clients that I've had over the past 10, 15 years, they're like, I remember the dress that you made for me. I remember the dress you made for my daughter. And it's still beautiful. And I think it's all about when you start paying attention to detail from the beginning, it just lasts the test of time. And choosing quality fabrications and craftsmanship is what we pride ourselves with. And those are the items that I would say are going to be timeless beyond my time here on Earth. I think people will still be wearing some of those items.
Quality and timeless and the aging, of course, like fine wine or things that you design definitely do. And I think one of the most exciting things I've seen about you is that you haven't wanted to go the conventional way of really, okay, how do I just get overseas and make my mark there? You've seen more than anything else a whole lot more potential on the continent, and you're making massive waves on the continent. And I know you really are a proud African, and you want to be able to continue to make your footprint on the continent. Tell us about how that journey is going and why the need and desire for you to make sure that David Tlale is known throughout the continent.
I mean, my love for the continent is, I think it's part of my DNA. I was born with it, and knowing that what Africa has to offer to the world is really special. And I know that as Africans, we are the connoisseurs of luxury. We are the connoisseurs of style and craftsmanship. And also we are huge consumers of beautiful things. And instead of trying to go overseas, yes, that will happen. I mean, in America, we've already done that, working on Europe right now. But it's very important to have a very strong home base in the continent and a cloud of customers supporting and believing in you, because the very clientele that we sell to in the continent, like right now, we've just launched a store in Ghana. It's like really beautiful, because the very customer that buys in Ghana will find me in London, will find me in New York and in Paris with time. So we're making sure that we are building a very strong and powerful following from the continent, and also to make sure that we keep inspiring the design industry in the continent to say, you can still make it while you are here. Because you look at designers from Europe or America, they make it there, and then their brands come to us. Why can't we do the same? Be great, be established, and make sure that your product is accessible in the continent before you even go overseas.
And ironically, on top of that, taking designs from here and then selling them back to us.
Right,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a big one.
It's a very clear success story, and you've now got to a stage where the world knows David Tlale, but it won't have been without its bumps in the road. As you look back on your entrepreneurial journey, what was the scariest moment for you? The moment you thought, what am I doing? How is this going to work?
The scariest moments in my life were when I was like facing financial challenges in my journey, and the media and the newspapers and everybody was just like writing about it. It was like, how am I gonna wake up and face the world again? But I knew that for me to be able to face the world and also my challenges is to just go out there and do it again. My biggest fear was, if I ever give up, it means I'm giving up on the dream that God has given unto me, and the dream that I'm busy building or even inspiring that young child back home in a shack or in Vosloorus or anywhere else. I'm saying it's okay to give up. So that's my biggest fear. And I ultimately resorted to saying, I give this business one more day on a daily basis.
It's a great way to be able to look at it, to make sure you
It's a terrifying way.
That's what being an entrepreneur is all about.
Exactly.
I mean, it's literally that. I mean, I think one of the most challenging things about an entrepreneur is every day you're thinking about your business not dying. Like, just don't die is one of those key words.
Yeah, please, don't die.
Just don't die, not today. And I've always used the analogy of how it's essentially a baby when you start a business. It's your child. You need to make sure that you keep it fed, that you nurture it, that you look after it, that you make sure the right people are around, that they be put in the right environment.
Exactly.
And then you grow this child and hopefully get it to a point where it can look after itself.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to stress about it, but that is...
Getting to that point is the most important, it's most difficult actually. And I think that's when most entrepreneurs just give in, just like, no, it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to have faith and to believe in something. I believe in God, and I think that takes me to the next level on a daily basis. And without faith, literally, I don't think I'd be where I'm at today.
If there is a lesson you know now after your years in the industry that you wish you'd known when you walked out of that auditing class and waved goodbye over your shoulder, a lesson that young budding entrepreneurs are thinking, what could help me, what would that lesson be?
I think that one lesson is, after I graduated from fashion school, I would do a lot of internship, I would do a lot of learnership programs, and also I would make sure that before I start my business, I've got financial backing, and I'd be like the most amazing designer today. So, but I'm glad that I did the grafting in the journey, and I mean, like, now I know better. Yeah.
David Tlale, designer extraordinaire in South Africa, on the continent, around the world. You've gotten award after award, and you've managed to create development and opportunities for so many young designers coming up. It's a passion of yours. With someone that's achieved so much that you have in the entrepreneurial space, while you still essentially are learning, but have achieved so much, what's still something that you look forward to? What goals do you still have? As a person like you, have those goals, or are you just kind of at that point where you're like,
no,
don't know what I need to do?
It's very interesting because now that I'm 18 years in the industry, I feel like now I have started working all over again. because the vision is clearer, the goals are much more defined, and I think I see exactly where I'm going, because I know that we've built a powerful brand that has a voice of authority or commands a particular style at any given time. Now, it's time now to make sure that we manifest the business into like reality, where we branch out in accessories, perfume, everything, lifestyle. And why am I saying this? It's because my very mentor, Julian, I asked him one day, it's like, how long does it take for you to start seeing that you're making money? He says 20 years. And then, this is like in 2003, I said to him, I don't have 20 years. He goes, well, you won't succeed. And now I'm 18 years into the industry. I'm starting to see that light, and things are starting to fall into place. And I am just like beyond surprised how our mentors do know the journey, what's going to unfold, what's going to happen. You're gonna do wedding dresses, you're gonna do matric dance dresses, ultimately have private clients and then hate it and want to stop and then want to do it again. So I've been through that journey, and right now it's really beautiful to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Damn, 20 years, I don't feel so bad anymore.
So we've got another 10 to go. You've given us some great lessons, some great recollections, and your story is a wonderful one on so many platforms. We'd like you to do one more thing for us though, please, Mr. Tlale, before you disappear off to whip up another grand creation. And that is to do what you do so well and what you are evidently so passionate about, and that's helping others and passing on what you've learned. We have a check for you for 10,000 Rand from Boschendal, and we'd like to give it to you to give to somebody else. So it's not.
I thought you were giving it to me. I mean, like,
it's not the David Tlale Maldives holiday fund, I'm afraid. We'd like you to pick whether it's a young designer, a young entrepreneur, maybe a platform where you think that 10,000 Rand check could really help to give somebody a boost.
Sure, I've got so many people on my plate, but I'm gonna choose one amazing designer from Vosloorus. His name is Sir Anthony. He designs beautiful jeans. He's just started like having like his own flagship store in the township, and he's doing phenomenal. And I think this 10,000 Rand will go a long way for him. He was part of the project I worked on last year, Vosloorus to New York, and he showcased a beautiful denim collection. And I think this will be a beautiful boost for him.
I think that's a wonderful, wonderful destination for that check. So David, thank you. And it's a small part of everything that you have done and continue to do for the fashionistas who follow in your footsteps. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yes. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers, David.
Cheers.
Yes.
There we go.
Cheers.
All right. Well, Maps and I are off to go and get fitted for some very similarly sized outfits. And in the meantime, we're also going to be finishing off a couple of glasses. Boschendal has been going since the 1690s. The wine is still very much in fashion, as is Mr. Tlale, and they've come together beautifully on today's episode of Boschendal, the Nicholas Red Blazer series. Keep following those entrepreneurial dreams. And if you're an auditor, smile. You could be the next David Tlale.
Cheers.